Okay, welcome to our first assignment in this format. We'll see how this goes. What we're talking about today is abolitionists. So at this time, as we move closer to the Civil War, you're going to see that one of these reform movements that we talked about earlier that grows and grows is the abolitionist movement. And the root word of abolitionist is abolish. And what these people were trying to abolish was the practice of slavery. So if you look, you're going to have a Google Doc that looks like several of these. It kind of has kind of a cutout of a person with some boxes. We've done something similar in the past. And then you should be able to click on a link where it's going to bring you to 6 different readings about 6 of the most famous abolitionists in America. How this is going to work is one of them we are going to do together, and then the other ones that you can do on your own at home. You only have to do 5 of the 6, which means John Brown, the one we do together, will already be done for you, and then you can choose between 4 of the other ones. Now, I would highly suggest that you choose to do Frederick Douglass, Harriet Beecher Stowe, and Dred Scott, since those ones are going to be on your test. As far as William Lloyd Garrison and Sojourner Truth, those ones are up to you. You can pick one of those 2 to do. You do not have to do all of them. So in the readings, guys, the things I ask you to look for is some of the background information on the person, a physical description and personality traits, what they're known for, any other specific information about them, and how did their actions help bring an end to slavery. Every one of those things you can find in each of the individual readings. Okay, so for John Brown, if you want to go ahead and pause me for a second, pull up the reading, find where it says John Brown, and then follow along as I read it to you. It says, John Brown was born on May 9th, 1800, in Torrington, Connecticut, to Ruth Mills and Owen Brown. Owen, who was a Calvinist and worked as a tanner, adherently believed that slavery was wrong. As a 12-year-old boy traveling through Michigan, John would witness an enslaved African-American boy be beaten, haunting him for years to come and informing his own abolitionism. Brown worked in a number of vocations and moved around quite a bit from the 1820s to 1850s, experiencing great financial difficulties. Tall, thin, and older looking than he was, Brown gained fame in the 1850s. Brown took part in the Underground Railroad, gave land to free African Americans, and eventually established the League of Gelatites, a group formed with the intention of protecting black citizens from slave hunters. In 1855, Brown moved to Kansas, where 5 of his sons had relocated as well. With the passing of the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, there was conflict over whether the territory would be free or a slave state. Brown, who believed in using violent means to end slavery, became involved in the conflict. In 1856, he and several of his men killed 5 pro-slavery settlers in a retaliatory attack at Potawatomi Creek. On the evening of October 16, 1859, Brown led a party of 21 men on a raid of the Federal Armory in Harpers Ferry, Virginia, now West Virginia, holding dozens of men hostage with a plan of inspiring a slave insurrection. He thought that arming slaves in Virginia plantations would be their only route to freedom. Once word of the revolt spread, more slaves would arm themselves and continue the revolution. Brown's plans seemed to be working. His forces held out for 2 days. They were, however, eventually defeated by military forces led by Robert E. Lee. Many of Brown's men were killed, including 5 of his sons, and he was captured. Brown's case went to trial quickly, and on November 2nd, he was sentenced to death. He was quickly hanged and remembered as a terrorist in the South and a martyr in the North. So now, guys, you want to look at the Google form, right? Abolitionist, I believe it says John Brown at the top. And then you're going to want to go ahead and fill out those 5 boxes, okay? Something about his background information, maybe where he was born, right? And his parents. His physical description, right? I will kind of tell you, it says in here that he's tall, thin, and older looking than he was. What is he known for? You might want to talk about Bleeding Kansas and the raid in Harpers Ferry, right? Other specific information about him. You can talk about his son, some of his other practices that he did. And then finally, guys, how did he end up bringing about slavery, right? You want to talk about at the very end and after his death. Let me know if you have any questions on Big Blue Button.